Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we have an interesting game between Sindarov Javokir from Uzbekistan versus Wei Ji, playing with the white pieces from China. And the game starts with e4. The game is afoot. We get e5, knight c3, and here this is a clear sign that you want to play the Vienna opening, sometimes with ideas of f4 to play the Vienna gambit, right? Okay, the game continues with knight c6, bishop c4, and here, instead of bishop c4, for example, f4, right? That's the Vienna gambit. Bishop c4, knight f6, d3, knight a5, hitting the bishop. Okay, and this is leaving a space for the bishop to retreat. Knight takes on c4, d takes on c4, bishop to c5. Okay, knight to f3, d6, queen to d3, bishop to e6, bishop g5. And so far, all of these moves have been played before. We have in the master database that a5 is the, sorry, not a5. No, what is the move? Oh, a6, sorry. a6 was the most common move in the position. But in this game, we're gonna get a5. Sorry about that. Okay, now we get knight to d5, and the point is to double up the pawns on the f file, right? Which black is actually okay with. There's no problem with this. After c6, knight takes on f6, g takes on f6, bishop to h4. Okay, we have double pawns. This pawn structure has been compromised, but we still have ideas of hitting this file with the rook. Rook to g8. Castle, a4, stopping the pawn from coming in. That's actually what happened in the game, but we can just take en passant. A takes on b3, c takes on b3, bishop to g4, hitting the knight. Okay, b4. Now we take this knight, and of course this cannot happen. They have to take back with the queen. Bishop to b4, hitting the rook. Okay, and now this is shown as an inaccuracy. Just taking the pawn is an inaccuracy. Bishop takes on f6. The best move was to step aside before that. Okay, now this happens. Queen to d7. We have to move the queen. Rook a to d1. Queen to e6. Hitting this pawn. Okay, h3. It's all good. Now queen takes on c4. Rook to d3. And the game is about balance, right? There's no real difference in terms of material or even position. So queen to e6, rook f to d1, and this is also shown as a mistake. Rook f to d1 to me makes sense. Rook to b1 is an alternative according to the engine. Also, the computer wants this to happen. Rook takes on d4, takes. And yeah, probably black has enough compensation for this, right? White has enough compensation for this sacrifice. Rook f to d1, rook to g6, hitting the bishop. So bishop to h4, king to f8, queen to h1. Again, this is an inaccuracy according to this engine. Rook to b1 is one choice, for example. The computer also wants to insist with this. Okay, queen to h5. King to g8, king to h1. This is supposed to be a mistake. To me, it makes sense. You're getting out of this attack. However, the best move in the position was rook to f3. Same idea. I mean, you are still protecting, keeping an eye on this pawn, right? With rook to f3. Okay, king to h1, c5, f4. We have to take the pawn. Next move is coming. Forking these two pieces, so this is not an option. Queen to f3, rook to e8, and this is again a mistake, but it's a bit curious because bishop to e5 is supposed to be, no, this is the best move, is to protect the pawn, but it's I think it's playable. Rook to e8 anyway. You're still putting pressure on this pawn. So bishop to f2, bishop takes on f2, queen takes. And now queen takes this pawn on e4. And rook takes on d6. This is the move that loses the game. Because now this pawn is escaping. So the best move in the position, best continuation, Also, Wei Yi was in trouble, in time trouble. And B takes on c5. D takes here, for example. Of course, the queen cannot take. This is checkmate. But the king will continue after something like, let's say, rook to f3, protecting from this diagonal. Queen to a4. The game continues. It's about balance. Okay, rook takes on d6 loses the game because now we have this threat of rooks. What I want to do with white is, with black, is trade my queens and then start pushing my pawn. And that's exactly what happened in the game. Rook takes on d6, queen to e3. Okay, I'm offering the threat of queens. Now it's moment to push my c pawn. Queen to g4 check, king f8, rook d1, trying to defend c3, queen to g5, f3, queen takes on e3, rook takes, and Wei Yi resign on the spot. There isn't much to be done. And as a sample line, we can show it. For example, let's say they take this pawn, c2, and I can also do kind of wait, bring my king around, but there is better moves. For example, here rook to c1, and I'm gonna reroute my rook here, and yeah, it's completely losing for white anyway. Okay, guys, I'm gonna break down another game in the women's section. We also had decisive results, and I think we sometimes don't give enough credit to women, not only in chess but also in life. So let's go with e4, e5, bishop to c4, knight f6, knight c3. Another game with the pin opening structure, right, where you have the knight on c3, knight c6, d3, bishop to b4, knight to f3, h6, castle, bishop takes on c3, they take back, castle, okay, rook to e1, d6, h3, knight to a5, bishop to b3, c5, c4. So this is the first novelty of the game, right? Usually white wants to keep the bishop alive, bishop to a4, for example. Or another alternative to this, I check in the database, knight to d2. Okay, just keeping an eye on the bishop. Everything is good. So c4 is the first novelty of the game, which kind of traps this bishop, but black doesn't really have to rush and take, right? I check and the computer doesn't really mind if you take, but it's like, well, no, you don't have to. You don't have to take. Okay, knight to h7. The game continues. c3. And this is going to be very positional, strategical battle, right? I love it. So f5. f5 here, you're fighting for the initiative. You're saying, okay, I am not waiting for white to finish arranging their pieces or finish development. They still have to develop the bishop. The rooks are disconnected, but I'm gonna break the game wide open with f5. Okay, he takes on f5, bishop takes, d4, and I think this is the most interesting. Here, I guess you can take, but Vaishali decides to go with e4. Okay, e4, I think there is a concept in chess, I don't remember the name, but to me in engineering, this, we can call this as your single point of failure. We're gonna play against or around this pawn, around e4 for the rest of the game. It's not a single point of failure for black, but for white, right? Because now I'm gonna put my bishop here, I can get my knight, I can get my rooks, my queen, and everything around this pawn. So I think that's the interesting part about this game. Knight to h2, b6, queen to h5, queen to f6. The game continues, bishop to e3, rearranging pieces, rook to e8, right? I'm gonna put more pressure on this pawn, more protection on this pawn. Rook a to d1, bishop to e6, and the game is about equal. Queen to e2, now protecting this pawn, right? There was also pressure on this pawn, so this is logical. Queen to f7, okay, now I'm gonna try to hit the pawn again. d5, all right, bishop to c8, bishop to a4, I have to move my rook, rook to e7, knight to f1, h5, knight to d2, and queen f6. Queen f6 is a blunder. It's supposed to be a blunder because it straight up just blunders this pawn, right? It blunders this pawn, queen to g6, and let's say that we take back a pawn or we recover material, then white will have the advantage. Here we can see some continuation where we trade queens, but now they have the bishop pair, the king is safer, so it wouldn't be convenient for black anyway. Okay, queen to f6. It still makes sense, you're kind of hitting the pawn. Okay, now rook to c1, queen to h4, bishop to c2, right? Trying to kind of just go back and recover this pawn. It's not easy. Bishop to f5, knight to b3. This is also supposed to be a blunder. I don't see a big deal with this blunder. So here, let's say we just take. A takes on b3, rook to e5. But as you can tell here already, black has better position pieces towards the king, right? The rook is coming in later. The queen is here, bishop, everything is good. Now, knight to b3. Actually, the top engine was just to sack this bishop. And we're gonna see this move a little bit later. Okay, the game continues after bishop to d1. Sorry, I skipped the move. Sorry. Knight to b3. The knight goes back. Knight to b7. Perfect. Bishop to d1. g6. a4. a4 again considered to be a mistake. What the computer thinks white has to do is put the knight here, knight to d2, helping in the defense of this structure, and also trying to go back after the pawn. Okay, knight to d8. Perfect. Sorry, this was the idea, the best continuation for black. And then what happens in the game is rook to e5. Again, a mistake or a slight inaccuracy. The computer wants this to happen. Something like knight to d8. I'm gonna put my knight here, my rooks here, and play with my knights on the dark squares, and my rooks are lined up, keeping an eye on the pawn. So that was kind of the strategical battle for black. Queen to d2 is played. And to me, this is okay. This is considered to be a blunder, but it's not really ignoring the opponent's plans. What you want to do is bring your rook. Okay, they just played rook to e5. Probably they want to play this, or even this, or this, right? It's different ideas. They might want to sacrifice the bishop, bring the rook, and get here, right? So queen to d2, to me, doesn't seem so bad. Like, you're still keeping an eye on this pawn, on these squares. Okay, bishop sacrifices anyway. Bishop takes on h3, and for obvious reasons, they cannot take. Let's just show the line. Knight to g5, the knight enters the game. Rook to c2. We can even get here, give a check, and the bishop has to take. If they don't take, the queen is hanging, right? So bishop has to take. Now rook takes, and yeah, the position is just falling apart for white. Bishop to h6, that's what happened in the game. Okay, they cannot take this bishop. They move here, hitting all the dark squares, hitting the rook. Rook to f7, rook to e3. Again, it's supposed to be an inaccuracy or a mistake, because here we can play something like, oh sorry, the best defense was queen to e3. Queen to e3, trying to go after the bishop. But it's the same idea, right? Rook to e3. So I don't see any mistake or big mistakes with this. I guess this bishop is kind of getting trapped, or it's awkward. So it's disconnecting. Bishop to g4 is played. Bishop to c2. And as I commented first in the game, right? The whole game has been around this pawn. You cannot get rid of this pawn with white. It's super annoying. Okay, bishop to f3. Nasty move. Another brilliancy. Which is like, what? What are you doing? Yeah, I'm just gonna open up the position. If you take, once you take here, you take on f3. My rook is coming. My knight is coming. My rook is coming. Everything is coming with black. It takes on f3. Okay, queen to d3. And what black has to do is just trade rooks. Just trade rooks here. Let's say that queen takes, gives a check. You just step aside, and you're still winning. You're still winning with black. But that doesn't happen in the game. Queen to d3 is like, okay, this is the threat. I'm gonna put my rook here on f5. And now rook takes. And if you take, this blunders the pawn. So Knight has to come in, knight to g5, bishop takes on g5, rook takes, given a check, and it's completely winning now for white again, right? So for black again, sorry, rook to g3. It's not completely winning actually. It's about an equal game, but visually, yeah, we have the positional advantage, right? Now rook to g3, queen to h3. This is a nasty, nasty move, right? You cannot take because you lose the king. Queen to f1. Yeah, this blunders the game. And now black is actually better now. The computer is saying, just be cool, dude. Just play knight to d2. Obviously, they cannot take it. If you take or they trade everything, they takes here. Now, white has the advantage. They have an extra piece. So after queen to f1, queen to h3, this was play. Queen to f1, which actually allows this to happen. Just takes, we give a check. Rook and queen in this open endgame with no defense of the king is completely winning. So we can see the continuation. Queen to g2, queen to e3 check, king to h2, rook to g5, queen h3, queen to f4, another check. Yeah, you cannot get out of the checks with white. Rook to g3, hitting the queen. Now queen to e6, king to g7, queen to e7, check. Now king h6, there are no more checks available. I mean, you can give a check here, but that doesn't work. Now bishop to e4, trying to defend this file, this also this square. Rook to g5, which is also a classy move. Here you can just go here, but rook to g5 is going with the same idea. Okay, I'm gonna attack all this file, and now this is my idea with black. So bishop to g2, queen h4, and now white resign because there is nothing to be done. Here, for example, a sample like king to g1 check. We can even give up the rook because now the queen is hanging. King takes, queen takes on e7. Yeah, now this is clear now how black is completely winning. So this was a nice strategical and then tactical battle, right? With two sacrifices, or they sacrificed the bishop twice. So it was amazing from Vaishali. Alright guys, these are the results of the open section. But Anish Girin is playing versus Matthias Blubam. They might draw the game, we still don't know. Let's check out the women's section. Okay, in the women's section, it's interesting to see the person who joined the tournament the last second now is on the lead with 4 points and a message hook. So let's see what lies ahead. I will see you in the next one, guys, and take care.